Welcome to the Short-Term Rental Playmaker Podcast, where we break down what it really takes to win in short-term rentals in today's market. From insider tips and emerging trends to real conversations with top playmakers in the space, this show gives you the tools, strategies, and mindset to build and scale a successful short-term rental business. Now, here's your host, Joe Roney.
Today's episode is brought to you by Savvy STR Agents, the short-term rental real estate experts helping investors find profitable vacation rental properties nationwide. If you're serious about scaling your STR portfolio, Savvy STR Agents should be your first call.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Playmaker Podcast. I am super honored to have my friend, colleague, and teammate Leah Yuhasz here with the Savvy Emerald Coast team. Leah, how are you?
Woohoo! We're making it through the summer. I'm enjoying the summer. It's a good break, but I'm ready for routine.
Yes. So kids are off to summer camp. You're working during the day, but are they out at summer camp every day, or is it just a few days a week?
It's week to week here. In our area, we don't have a ton for the younger kids to do, so we really are week to week. Some weeks we're full blown 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Some weeks it's just us. Every day something's different. So it's keeping it spicy.
Yeah. Well, for all the audience out there, I know we've chatted about this before, but Leah, you were actually my first ever, one of my first ever coaching clients. And now we're celebrating 1 year with being in the Savvy Emerald Coast team, which you have completely crushed. So it's kind of been a long journey with you over the last, 3+ years, but it's been awesome.
Yeah, it has been a journey, definitely. I think pivoting is the key word here, but all the same in real estate. And when you partner up with people that are doing it in the same way, in a very focused, intentional way, it just really keeps you powered forward in a way that it pushes you to keep growing in your knowledge. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of point that out, the pivoting in this business, because there's so many ways to be successful in this business and to help other people and to make money. And, initially you thought co-hosting was going to be the route and doing the property management side. And, it worked out for you, but you realized that probably wasn't your best niche. And we have seen you completely sprout to be one of the best agents that I've ever worked with in the Emerald Coast area, and the real estate side seems to be your niche.
Yeah, I think when you're juggling 10 active properties at a time, it can get very, very interesting very fast. And there's a certain component to that is right here, right now. I've got to stop everything. And when you do that, it's such a high level with so many properties, because you are type A in your business. You really want to make sure you're delivering for your clients and for your guests. It's twofold amounts of pressure. Being able to actually be there for my kids as number one priority just felt like it was way too far away at one point. And so just shifting my priorities back and forth in focus, but then still using every single thing that I've learned and obtained in the industry to pivot full time into real estate and helping those clients with everything that I've grown to know. It feels like it was all worth it, especially the growing so fast, so quick. It was powerful, but now I'm able to take everything that I shrank down into such a few years, rather than 10 years, just a few years. And now all of that knowledge is being passed into people getting in for the first time.
Yeah. And huge accomplishment, $18 million in your first year with Savvy. That is huge. That is a huge accomplishment. And I have no doubt we're going to see that number double in the second year with Savvy.
I hope to just help at least 2 or 3 times as many people. And that's my goal, is to just always stay focused in the quality, no matter what the price per transaction is. And it's just, internalizing that it's families and their deals, and just making sure that every deal is an absolute, treat and treasure for the person that's getting it. I think that's just rewarding, you know.
Yep. And I think you talked about it with having that work-life balance with your kids. Like, there's no such thing as work-life balance, especially in real estate or anything else. But being able to be there for your kids and the weeks that they're not on summer break, to be able to be with them and schedule things around them, because the great things about being a realtor is there is flexibility, but then there's times when the going gets tough and it is go, go, go. And how has been juggling that since you've made that transition?
Luckily, I have really gracious clients that, they understand that I have a family. And I think sometimes even when they know that I have a family, they back up a little bit too much. They're like, oh, I don't want to bother you. No, no, no. And that's something that, really should never be a concern as a client. But there's so many different times that I can find in my day to connect back and get the information back. And it's not such a fire drill. It's just actually, getting it back in an appropriate turnaround time, and being able to work at all different times of the day is, it's a true blessing. It really is. And I love the lack of structure. So I love the 7 day a week. Every day just rolls into the next. I never know if it's Tuesday or Friday. It's all the same to me. And yeah, if the weekends work better, that's okay too.
Yeah. I think that's one of my favorite parts of real estate is, there's many days that me and Jen are in the office and neither of us have any clue what day it is, because there is no off days, but then there are off days, right? And that day might be a Tuesday when everybody else is working a 9 to 5, and I can schedule doctor's appointments and do stuff like that because I can make my schedule flexible around that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it was a hard thing to pivot into, I guess, putting the kids first, but it was so necessary because we don't have family right down the road to help us do this life. You only get one chance at it. So intentional time and making the most of every single call, I think I want to save myself and kind of bottle up all of that energy to make it a very appropriate time focused scenario. And I encourage everybody else to do the same. Sometimes you got to say no more often and kind of rethink and rework what works best for you. Because if you're not showing up at that moment when it's convenient, even if it's clients, I'm like, hey, don't worry. If that time doesn't work for you, we can just do another time. It's not stressful.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about 30A. So, from when I jumped into the Emerald Coast and bought my first short-term rental almost 5 years ago to selling real estate to bringing you on, I've heard a million times there is no money to be made in the Emerald or in 30A. You can't have cash flowing properties in 30A. Nobody can do it anymore. And yet here you are helping clients find cash flowing properties in one of the most popular areas in the country, in my opinion, when going to the beach. And where the prices are high, but you were able to find deals, negotiate deals, and find out where the numbers make sense. So what has that been like?
It's been really fun. I do want to share one of the most recent testimony case studies the last couple of weeks that came about. And the client took about 6 weeks to go live and launch. And he bought in the end of April. And so he took his time. It took about 6 weeks to get everything up and going. Very turnkey property, but just a few furniture exchanges and things that he wanted to add. He also came down and stayed for about 3.5 weeks. I thought he was going to move here at one point. And he was a little bit weary about going live towards the middle to end of June. He didn't think he was going to get any bookings for July. I thought it was too last minute. I said, no, you'd be surprised at all the scenarios that actually end up happening, whether it's a last minute cancellation from a property that sold, or it's a family that actually just moved around some plans and they needed to come sooner. There's going to be a lot of different things that popped up. But within 24 hours of launching, he got 22 grand in bookings for the next 3.5 weeks. And it was just so satisfying watching him be shocked. It's one of those, when you're going live in the middle of the season, yes, there is this, what's going to happen? How low do I need to drop my prices? There is a lot of strategy that goes into this, but very rewarding watching that happen. Beyond that, the whole, I guess, the point that you said, where we're talking about how popular this area is, I think that's the key in investing here, because many people would turn away and think there's too many people that are successful. And we know, working on the inside of things and pulling numbers every day, that there's a lot of properties that are beautiful and they're being mismanaged. And that's a whole different, that could be a whole nother 2-hour conversation just right there in the way that a property is represented. And that's the important thing for people to understand when they go into any market, is the success is going to be written with your whole team and your strategy around the property. We work with you to get you the best location, the best strategy, the best number and level of size guests that we're putting in this pocket versus that pocket, and the amenities that actually work well with that kind of reservation, and all of the different things. We're putting the puzzle pieces together with you, but just knowing that everything you do on the back end is going to help propel you forward from there.
Yeah, I love it because, in all of the Emerald Coast, 30A, PCB, wherever you are, there are so many property managers that have been around for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And they're just the good old boy club. They're worried about getting you booked, not worried about getting you the best ADR. And we're seeing it time and time again where, what we thought were the top performing properties when I got into this market are not even in the middle of the pack because they're being so mismanaged. And you're proving it on what you're able to find with your clients. And there are just so many property managers that literally just set it and forget it, and they don't have any strategy behind it.
Yeah, it's amazing to see what someone with strategy that knows how to price it, that knows how to even get better photos will do. I've seen turnarounds within a week, and someone go from being listed for 3.5 months with the wrong property manager, get a new property manager. Within a week, they have 3 or 4 bookings just immediately. So,
Yep.
yeah, there's a lot.
It's funny, when I first came into the Emerald Coast, my realtor at the time told me, we don't really use AirDNA down here because it's not very accurate. We only use key data because it's real numbers from the property managers. And I thought about that in the beginning, a long time ago, and I'm like, yeah, but now with key data, you're only pulling property managers' data, not top performing operators that are self-managing, that are marketing their property and doing good designs. And I think that's where the biggest miss comes. And the majority of realtors in our market are they're asking property managers what these properties can do because they have no idea.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the projections, if you pull 2 or 3 projections, and you have no idea outside of this whole world of just straight 300-400 properties at least type of property management situations, if you have no extra knowledge on this whole other scenario of how a listing is propelled forward, how a property is represented, then yeah, if you continue to ask for projections, you're going to think, well, I guess this is just what a property would do, right? I heard the other day that this one's doing this, and oh, this one gets 10,000 extra. But when you consistently see 40 to 60,000 on top of a normal property management projection, it makes you dig in a different way. And I just recently had a property management company explain their numbers of 3 years ago. They had a certain number for a property, and it changed about 80 grand from 2 years from that. They did admit we went from about 40,000, or excuse me, we went from about 40 properties to 290 in a very quick, short amount of time. And if you don't have enough eyes on everything, then that will impact everybody within that group.
Yep, it will. And it's, I mean, and not to say there aren't large property managers that don't do well. There are some that put enough systems in place and have revenue managers and do the things that they can do. Not throughout the whole nation. I'm not saying in the Emerald Coast because I haven't seen a whole lot there yet, but there are big property managers somewhere that is doing a great job.
They're somewhere.
They're somewhere out
there.
there.
Somewhere.
But it's funny. Every time I get a listing or even a buyer under contract, I get at least 3 emails from property managers saying, "Hey Joe, we would love to talk to your buyer and get you rental projections and blah blah blah." And I love it because I entertain it. I'm like, great, shoot me over your rental projections. And then they'll send it over. And, I had one recently. They're like, we think we could do about 80 to 90K in this property. I'm like, oh, that's really great. I said, I actually manage the house next door and we're at 167 for the year. So I don't think those numbers are going to work out for my clients too well. And they're like, well, how did you get to 167? and it's just funny. And I love to entertain the property managers and educate them some. I actually, with one of the largest property managers, with one of the vice presidents, he actually called me and we had about a 2-hour conversation a few months ago. And they just have a different philosophy, right?
Different
Their
model.
philosophy is not getting the owner the most revenue. It's
Right.
keeping it booked and doing the best they can.
Right. Yep.
So, the other thing I want to bring up is, 30A is also another one of those areas on data that a lot of people use their rentals. And I think that skews the data a lot. A lot of these people are using them as second homes and they're staying a month during peak season or even 2 weeks during peak season can really dramatically change your numbers for a summer, during that time frame. Are you still seeing that a lot on the numbers that are getting skewed that way?
That is true. That's definitely true. I think there's a lot of neighborhoods where we would have a lot better data. Of course, AirDNA helps us dive into the days available. That kind of gives us that little wink of if the owner is actually using it a lot. We'll typically see around 270 days or so is available, which means they're probably blocking it out for at least 2 or 3 months for themselves, maybe a few weeks
Yep.
for friends and family. But even when they're doing well at that number, at least we have a couple of comps in that kind of middle ground range. And then we have at least 2 or 3 comps that are hitting it out of the park. So yeah, you do still have a lot of people that are continuing to use it as a second home. Which why not?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to buy a rental property, and my wife and I just had this conversation on our way home today because we're building a new short-term rental in Panama City Beach, and she's like, if it's going to be done by March, can we take all of our friends and family and stay in it for a week during peak season next year? And I'm like, well,
Peak season, cringe.
can we make peak season the end of August when everyone goes back to school? So,
Yeah.
we do want to enjoy it with our family and friends, and we will probably give away a little bit of revenue to be able to do that first year. It's not going to be an every year thing, but and it's okay. It's okay to use that. So,
Yeah. I think that touching on that too is really just that kind of hits what the 30A market is about also, which is enjoyment, but also cost tax savings, right? Which we'll, have going on for the next 2-3 years, at least. And
Yep.
then we also have appreciation, which is a totally different kind of scenario. It's your buy and hold and wait a little while, not necessarily immediate cash flow, which 14 to 16% average on cash on cash. But beyond that, we have really just a lot of people that are so concerned that if they spend 2 or 3 weeks at their property and they choose something that they enjoy and love, that they can create memories with their family, that's actually a $15,000 gain, right? Vacations are expensive. And
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're using something that you bought, that is a return to you. And it's okay to buy something where you enjoy and also have it make sense in so many different buckets of investing too.
Yeah, no, I agree. So if I were an investor wanting to get into 30A, in every market we have a sweet spot of where the money is on how much you need to spend. I think that is a much bigger gap in 30A because I've seen you produce numbers on homes that are in the 700 range and in the $2 million range. But what do you see as, if I wanted the best ROI, what's that price point look like?
The best ROI really is in the 1.6 to 1.8 category. The numbers really just jump up quite a bit. And then among that, we have such an amount of new builds that are giving that extra punch for depreciation and things like that, as well as appreciation. So newer builds are great opportunities. But then that's where we see things get really interesting in that $200,000 to $300,000 mark.
Yep. I agree. I think it's funny because, when I first started selling real estate, I said, okay, our sweet spot is 600 to 900. And that still is a sweet spot in PCB, the 600 to 900. But I've also sold $2 million homes that are doing 350, right? And or $1.4 million home that's going to hit 275. And that's the, the greatest thing about when you get to the higher price points, your gross ROI can be lower, right? When you're in that $500,000 to $600,000 price point, you've got to hit that 20% gross ROI for it to be profitable. But when you get to that $2 million price point or 1.8, you can be at a 15% gross ROI and hire a manager and still have a little bit of cash flow because the revenue is just that much greater at that point.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's either 650 to 850 or 1.6 and above.
Yeah. Yep. So, so I think it really opens the doors for any type of investor that wants to get in. Obviously, we don't have a whole lot in 30A for the under 500K. Not saying there isn't anything out there, but I agree. I've seen some of those 600 to 800K deals that you've done that really pencil out, and many people don't believe that you can pencil anything in 30A.
You just gotta grab the right pencil.
And sharpen it and be honest and accurate and understand, what you have to put into the property. So the next point I want to touch on in 30A is every house in 30A looks the same. They all have white interior, white walls, white furniture, blah, 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 blah. So what have you seen some of your clients do in design that have made them stand out a little bit? Because I still think you need to keep that luxury design theme and keep that 30A feel. But what are some things that some of your clients have done to say, okay, this is how we separated ourselves to get to that next level?
So one of my most recent, very, very, very fun case study. Love this couple. They actually are partners. And the wife designed it herself and she did a phenomenal job. I was very, very worried. It was it's 2,400 square feet for her to design on her own.
Yep.
And had not seen any of her work, but just encouraged her and cheered her on the whole way, gave her some taste of things that really work in that area, that little pocket. And she took it and ran with it. Within about 4 weeks, about a month, she gained top 5%, and they are exceeding their numbers price per night this summer by $200 a night. So $200 a night over what we were projecting for them to do their very first summer, and they're booked solid, and they were booked solid within 4 weeks. And so that was so nice to see because they did curtains, bedding, throw pillows. They kept a few pieces of furniture, but they did not go all out expensive. They used a lot of Wayfair, right?
Yep.
And they just made it very interesting and fun for their guest avatar, which was very appropriate. And I think that's the design does need to be appropriate. And so she's really excelled at that. I've had Summerled do some great work down here as well. And because they're adding those pops of color and that interest within the property. And it doesn't take much for a group of people looking to say, oh, I really liked that one with the green bunk beds. Or, hey, what about that one that had that cool game room upstairs and a couple of, didn't it have a blue wall or something,
Yeah.
So it actually helps people identify and pick out a property if they can go back and say, well, what about that one? It was interesting, right? And so there's a lot of properties down here that they're very white, they're very rattan and beautiful, Pottery Barn, very luxury feel, but it does all start to blend together. So standing out is not hard to do. And I say that often as an encourager.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree on the, on the design. I think, we are in a space where we help a lot of clients get into the luxury space and they're putting in a lot of money in designs and amenities. But at the same time, you have to understand your market and what you can get away with and what you can't, right? You don't have to, I love Ashita. And if you want to be competitive in Asheville, North Carolina, you're going to be spending $200,000 plus on your design to be able to compete with her properties. That's it. But in our market, you don't have to do that. We don't have that level of design yet. We're getting it. It's slowly coming, but you can spend $50,000 and still make a huge impact is what I'm seeing.
Exactly. Yeah. Things like turf and just furniture or throw pillows. a couple of game consoles, they can really go a long way. I see a lot of game rooms that are marketed as a big game room. It's a big 8-bedroom house, and they have a game, a
Yeah.
pool table. And we're failing our actual audience that is coming there for that if we're calling that a game room.
Yeah. I mean, we're designing our new short-term rental, and I'm having 4 arcades lined up with the basketball hoop and an air hockey table. That's a game room, right? That's that's if we're gonna have 15 guests and there's only one arcade, then you're gonna have everybody sitting there waiting. That's not a game room,
Yeah.
right?
We recently booked one in the Smokies, and my 2 kiddos, and they're 4 and 7, and then our nieces or our nephews was at this cabin this trip. And 4 boys, they have a foosball table with one ball, one little soccer ball that we could find, and the shuffleboard was pretty much out of sand. And they've got little fingers, they don't even know how to play. I'm sitting there trying to explain to them how to play.
Yep.
They won't care about any of that stuff. They want the games. They love the Pac-Man, all the little consoles, and that's what they gravitate towards. So yeah, give them what they want.
Well, and at the end of the day, that's what's providing the adults a great experience, because while the kids are playing, the adults can actually have a vacation and relax and have a glass of wine without the kids coming to you every 30 seconds on, what am I doing? Come play with me. Come do this. Come do that.
Exactly.
So I and at the end of the day, that's what we're in. We're in the hospitality business. We're creating experiences for our guests, and we want them to have great vacations. And and that's really what it's all about. And it's nice if you can put that one arcade on a 2-bedroom is fine, but on a 7 or 8 bedroom, that's not really going to cut it.
That's right. Exactly.
So last thing I want to discuss is obviously 30A is drawn up into multiple areas. We have multiple cities throughout 30A, from Inlet Beach to Rosemary to Seaside, Grayton, Santa Rosa. What if you had to choose today, what area? And then I'm going to ask a follow-up question is, everyone talks about this water sound subdivision or watercolor, and it's like the most amazing place to be since sliced bread. I was next to a guy in an airplane, and he literally talked about watercolor for the entire 2-hour flight on our way down there one time, and how he will never vacation anywhere besides there. So touch on watercolor and why it's so great, and then besides watercolor, what is the best town to be looking into buy a short-term rental?
Okay, well, I'm glad you said watercolor, because it really is, it's my top favorite, and it would be my top pick over and over again. It has a beach club, and it has 5 pools, but main thing, they have a wonderful beach club right on the water. So if you can imagine kind of Cabo feel, you've got the beautiful pool right beside the water. So you can kind of ping pong in between a big, beautiful pool. They've even got a couple of side pools, hot tub area right outside of a restaurant that's right on the water. So it's a prime location. You can't get that kind of pool on the beach experience anywhere else.
Yeah.
But they also have so many other amenities, like the big lagoon pool, where you don't have to necessarily be at that particular pool. So with busyness, you can spread out to so many different areas and locations. You also have a really cool kids club. So when you bring your kids down and you're staying in watercolor, they'll actually provide childcare for a few hours for you. And it's very cheap and affordable. A lot of people don't know about that, but hello.
Yeah.
I want a vacation with a little bit of childcare too, when I'm just right around the corner, maybe doing a tennis session with my husband, and we're just having fun making memories, or maybe we're grabbing a drink by the pool. But watercolor really is the quintessential representation of 30A, because you also have so much nature around you. So it's someone that actually wants to maybe take a hike, take a stroll, get on a bike. They do have some e-bikes. It's kind of new, but beautiful parks and beautiful areas just to disconnect and relax. It is also right behind Seaside. So Seaside is the big Airstream area. And,
Yep.
I'm always thinking about how to convey to buyers, investors, vacationers, how to describe Seaside. Seaside is kind of like that big tailgate area, but it's also like a festival. It's kind of like a a festival without the rides.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you
Boutique shops. Yep.
yeah, you go shop, you look around, you take a peek at art. You might grab a drink, grab a basket of fried food, grab a grilled cheese, and just relax. And they do have the beach access is open there quite often during the day. But watercolor gives you that direct access. So any events that's going on in Seaside throughout the holidays and the off season, like music, entertainment, is going to happen within a hop, skip, and jumping away. You don't have to get in your car. You can just walk.
So pretty much like the resort experience, we're going to be when this actually comes out. You and I will be in St. Thomas, enjoying a resort feel, and doing something very similar with the restaurant and drinks on the beach and the whole works. And I mean, I think watercolor sounds great, especially for, like you said, the clientele that really wants an experience vacation. And what everyone tells me is people that stay there, they don't really leave there to go sit in traffic and wait on restaurants, 30, 40 minutes away. Everything you have is right there and what you would need for a great experience.
Yeah, it's a week-long stay, and it's also a very pricey week-long stay, and it's consistent throughout the whole community. So for an investor that is looking for something that will continue to appreciate, that's right at the 2 million mark, and it's been in the top revenue category for years. Watercolor is that consistent area that produces 220 to 280 even without a private pool, and it's year round too.
Yeah, and I think it helps for people that want to get off the Airbnb platform and be able to direct book, because there are so many that'll come back to that same house year after year after year because they found their place, they love coming back, and they're going to be very loyal to the good hosts.
Yes, if you do a search, at the beginning of the summer, what's available middle of July, because I recently did this for a client, I found 3 properties, and there are hundreds in this little area. So people do book quite a bit out. It gives you a lot of confidence as an investor.
Yeah, well, definitely a place to look and invest, and super excited to have you on today to discuss 30A and everything that it's all about. If you've audience, if you have not been to 30A, it's absolutely beautiful. White sand beaches, crystal clear, emerald green waters. Like, it truly is one of the most magical places in Florida. That's why we are in the Emerald Coast. It's why we do what we do, because it is such a great place to be.
Yes, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, so appreciate it again. And for everyone out there, thank you for joining me on another episode of the Short Term Rental Playmaker, and we'll see you guys next week.